ये समझ आ गया बेटा? नाउ व्हाई द इंटेंस साइज ऑफ ओजोन होल इज लार्जर ओवर अंटार्कटिका, वो इसमें नहीं है, वो समझ लेना ठीक से, ठीक है? एंड व्हाई ओजोन होल ओवर अंटार्कटिका इज फॉर लॉन्गर ड्यूरेशन. सी winters or summers, they are severe in northern hemisphere or southern hemisphere? Winters and summers are severe over northern hemisphere or southern hemisphere? Why? In northern hemisphere most of the land is there, land gets heated and cooled quickly, so ideally northern hemisphere should exhibit extremes of temperature. In southern hemisphere water bodies are there, it should exhibit lower extremes, but reality is southern hemisphere the winters and summers are very intense. Winters are very cold and winters are very warm and summers are very cold. Because this is because you see this is earth is tilted, so it revolves around the sun with its tilted axis. It revolves around the sun with its tilted axis. Now when do we say winters are in the northern hemisphere? When we say winters in northern hemisphere, when the northern hemisphere is tilted away from sun. Winters in northern hemisphere means when the northern hemisphere is tilted away from sun, it is winters. Then we say sun is shining over Tropic of Capricorn. During summers, when do we say summers? We say summers when the northern hemisphere is tilted towards the sun. Isn't it clear? Earth's orbit around the sun is elliptical. At one point of time, Earth is closest to the sun. At other point, it is away from the sun. Isn't it? During when will be the northern winters? Basically, when the Earth is closest to the sun. When it is farthest from the sun. इतनी डेट तो भी पड़ी होंगी ना? 3rd जनवरी को अर्थ क्लोजेस्ट होती है, 4th जुलाई को इट इज farthest. During January, our northern hemisphere is having winters. During 4th July, the northern hemisphere is having summers. When it is winters in northern hemisphere, Earth is closer to the sun, so winters are not severe. Whereas southern hemisphere is having summers and Earth is also closer to the sun. Are you getting it? So summers in southern hemisphere are intense. Likewise, during summers when the Earth is tilted, north pole is tilted towards the sun, the distance is more. It basically perihelion, it is aphelion. 3rd January perihelion, 4th July aphelion. Now this is the winter season. During winter, south pole is tilted away from sun, and moreover, the distance from the earth and sun is maximum. As a result, the temperature, that is minus 82 degrees centigrade, this remains over the Antarctica for 4 to 5 months. Whereas on above Arctic Ocean, this temperature remains for 1.5 to 2 months. It is 1.5 to 2 months when the temperature is in northern hemisphere, in above north pole, the temperature is below minus 82 for 1 to 1.5 to 2 months. The temperature is less than basically above the north pole in stratosphere. The temperature is less than minus 82 for 1.5 to 2 months. So polar stratospheric clouds can get formed only for that duration. Whereas in south pole, southern above Antarctica, the temperature is below minus 82 for 4 to 5 months. So obviously this polar stratospheric cloud will remain in existence for long, and basically chlorine atom it can react for longer duration. Are you getting this? So what happens when the duration, this temperature, this duration is more, basically the chlorine will remain reactive mode, and for longer duration, so the size of ozone hole is bigger and its duration is also longer. Are you getting this? Why the duration is more? Maybe it might be given here, I am not sure. Even if it is not there, it has nothing to do with this. Antarctic temperatures also remain below PSC formation temperature for much longer period during winters. Winter temperatures are low enough for PSC to form for about 5 months in Antarctic, and Arctic it is just for 10 to 60 days. Are you getting it? Have you got this? Now, what we are discussing? This. We are discussing the factors behind global warming. We discussed basically various greenhouse gases are there: carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, ozone, CFCs. They are responsible for global warming. It is because of these gases that basically global warming is taking place. Now we will discuss effects of climate change. It is being said these climate change that is being affected, basically warming is taking place. This global warming will further induce warming. Why we say 2 degrees centigrade is the threshold limit. Temperature should not increase beyond 2 degrees centigrade. Because if the global temperature increase beyond 2 degrees centigrade, then this warming, तुम्हें कुछ नहीं करना है, फिर बैठे रहो. This warming will itself induce warming. For example, the permanently frozen soil in Arctic region, basically permafrost soil, it has billions of tons of methane stores. Methane is stored below it. And once the global temperature rises beyond 2 degrees centigrade, this permafrost soil will melt, and these methane stores will be released in the atmosphere automatically. Billions of tons of methane is stored below the permanently frozen soil of permafrost in Arctic region. Basically, once this permafrost soil gets melted, basically these methane stores will be released to atmosphere. That will aid to warming. That will further aid warming. Secondly, high latitude peatlands. As the temperature increases, these high latitude peatlands will get oxidized, and that will release carbon dioxide. Thirdly, it is said that the sea level is rising at a rate of 2 mm per year. If the global temperature rises beyond 2 degrees centigrade, this present sea level rise is attributed to melting of glaciers, ice. But if the global temperature rise beyond 2 degrees centigrade, merely thermal expansion of water will multiply this rate of sea level rise by 5 times. Are you getting this? Not melting of ice, merely because of thermal expansion, the sea level rise will be multiplied by 5 times. It is said that certain diseases, certain areas, for example, say China, Bangladesh, which are low-lying areas, 70 million people each in China and Bangladesh would have to be relocated if sea level rises by 1 meter. All the coral islands of the world will be lost if sea level rises by 1 meter. And it is said that infectious disease like malaria, as the temperature increases, would spread to more than 50% area of the globe. They would spread to more than 50% area of the globe. So what needs to be done? The global countries came together, some measures need to be adopted. The countries should adopt, basically the policy framework should be adopted at international level, national level, regional level and local level. At every level the effort should be done in order to ensure human survival on this planet. Now the international level, Intergovernmental Negotiation Committee was established, and in 1991 United Nations Framework UNFCCC, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, that is UNFCCC came into existence in 1991, and formally it became operational in 1994. So what happened at global level, UNFCCC has been the key player. UNFCCC, United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. It finally became operational in 1994, although it was established in 1992. So it is the basic objective of UNFCCC is to maintain the percentage of greenhouse gases in atmosphere at such level which do not threaten the human existence on this planet. The sole objective of UNFCCC is to contain the proportion of greenhouse gases in atmosphere to such a level which does not threaten the human existence on this planet. And initially countries made certain conventions that yes, we will try to reduce the greenhouse gas emission, but those agreements were not fruitful. This UNFCCC meets by way of convention of parties. COP meetings are there, and one of the very important COP meeting was COP 3, that was convened in Japan in 1997. That is known as Kyoto Protocol. 160 countries attended this, and basically 36 industrialized nations pledged to reduce the greenhouse gas emission by 5.2% below 1990 levels by 2012. Basically there are two groups of countries, Annexure 1 countries and Annexure B countries. Annexure 1 countries are all the industrialized countries which are committing to reduction. Annexure B countries are rich Annexure 1 countries which fund the developing countries for various low carbon technologies. Annexure 1 are all large group of countries which contains all those developed countries which are committed for reducing the emission. Within Annexure 1 is a small group of Annexure B countries which are rich countries which finance, for example, Green Climate Fund. The Annexure B countries are rich Annexure 1 countries. Rich Annexure 1 countries which finance the developmental needs or low carbon technology to the developing countries. Are you getting it? तुम लोगों ने करंट अफेयर्स वाले में नहीं आए थे क्या? उसमें मैंने शायद लिखवाया भी था व्हाट इज द डिफरेंस Annexure 1 and Annexure B countries. Annexure B countries are larger grouping. Within Annexure 1 countries lies Annexure B countries. Rich Annexure 1 countries are known as Annexure B countries. Right? Now, in Kyoto Protocol, basically the countries pledged that they will bring down the emissions by 5.2% below 1990 levels by 2012. So, under this protocol, it was stated that this reduction in the emission of greenhouse gases shall be accompanied by national measures. That is, countries will either develop new technology or they will shut down the polluting industries. By way of national measures, they will reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. But apart from national measures, they were also provided with 3 market-based mechanisms. Suppose if you fail to reduce your emission by shutting down your industries or by basically any other measures, you have the right to assess the 3 market-based mechanisms. What were the 3 market-based mechanisms? First was emission trading, also known as carbon trading. Second was clean development mechanism known as CDM, and third was joint implementation. Emission trading, basically this mechanism was applicable only between Annexure 1 and Annexure 1 country, or you can say Annexure B countries. This mechanism was applicable only between Annexure 1 and Annexure 1 countries, or you can say Annexure 1 or Annexure B countries. That is those countries which are required to reduce their emission. Under Kyoto Protocol, the 36 industrialized nations were required to reduce their emission. In emission trading, every country was allotted a quota, isn't it? Suppose in a particular year, a country has emitted less than what it was permitted. That is, it has some spare units to emit. Then those spare units it can sell to any other Annexure 1 countries which is exceeding its limit. Simple. Since carbon is being traded like a commodity, it also is known as, this led to the formation of carbon market. Are you getting it? Emission trade. Simple. What it is? That is, if a country has emitted, it is between Annexure 1 and Annexure 1 country. That is, country is bound by the Kyoto Protocol to reduce their emission. That is, if a country has emitted less than what was permitted, then a country can sell the surplus spare units to those other Annexure 1 countries who are exceeding their quota. So carbon was being sold as a commodity. So this led to the formation of carbon market. You are selling the carbon space. Yes.
Only Annexure 1.
They were required to reduce the emission previously. After 2020, all the countries will be required to reduce the emission. Isn't it true? They're developed countries. Annexure 1 countries are developed countries which are required to reduce their emissions under the Kyoto Protocol. This mechanism that they have to reduce the emission by 5.2% below 1990 levels by 2012. This was applicable to these 36 industrialized countries which are known as Annexure 1 countries. Among these countries which are rich, which provide funding to the poor countries, those are known as Annexure B countries. Annexure B and Annexure 1 are, for this purpose, both are same. Now, have you got the emission trading? This was a market-based mechanism that was operative only between Annexure 1 and Annexure 1 countries. Second is clean development mechanism. Have you got this? Emission trading समझ में आ गया बेटा? Clean development mechanism. This mechanism was operative between Annexure 1 and non-Annexure country. Non-Annexure means developing countries. What is clean development mechanism? Basically, under this, Annexure 1 country would establish any emission reduction project, ERP. Under clean development mechanism, any Annexure 1 country can establish emission reduction project in any developing country for the amount of emission that is reduced. For example, for 1 ton of emission that gets reduced, the developing country get one certified emission reduction certificate from Kyoto Protocol, from Kyoto. Suppose in this what happens, Annexure 1 country will establish emission reduction project in a developing country. Because of this project, the emission will reduce. For 1 ton of carbon dioxide that is less emitted, the developing country will earn 1 certified emission reduction credits or certificates. These certificates are tradable, so it is known as credit. Are you getting it? For 1 ton of emission reduced, the developing country will get what? Certified emission reduction credit. These are certificates. Since they are sellable, so they are known as credits. It will get those credits. Suppose I was the developed country and you are the developing country. I established emission reduction project in your country, right? Whatever emissions of carbon dioxide have reduced, whatever tons of carbon dioxide emissions have reduced, you will get certified emission reduction credits from Kyoto, and I will purchase those credits from you, and I will add that reduction in my reduction. You are getting technology as well as. Are you getting it? Not getting it.
So that is set up by developed countries.
Lack of trade. मेट्रो खुद को नहीं बना लिए. लॉट ऑफ क्रेडिट हैज बीन अर्न्ड बाय जापान. हम खुद ही कर लेते अगर हमारे टेक्नोलॉजी होती. इट इज बिकॉज ऑफ लैक ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजी. मेट्रो क्यों बनाया जापान? इट हैज अर्न क्रेडिट.
But credit should be given to developed countries directly.
नहीं, बेसिकली you have reduced the emission in your country ना, so you will get it from Kyoto, but you will sell it to that country which has established the project. These credits, these certificates are saleable, therefore they are known as carbon credits. Credits होते हैं ना, carbon credit is a generic term. It's a generic term.
So the developed nations are getting credits without reducing their emissions.
They are reducing the overall emissions.
Otherwise, they are not reducing, but
They are reducing the global emissions.
But they are not obliged to reduce the emissions because they are not included in the Annex 1. They are not there in Annex 1.
That is what I am saying. This mechanism could not take off on a large scale, but still it requires more funding because in developing countries they use solid fossil fuels. In developed countries they use liquid fossil fuels. So the technology that are being deployed in respective countries are different. So on large scale this mechanism could not be used. Without actually reducing your own emission, you can earn the reductions that have been earned in developing countries, but you have contributed it. So this is known as second market-based mechanism. I told you initially they were required to reduce the emission by way of national measures, but if they failed, they can also use these market-based mechanism. Third was joint implementation. This again was applicable between annexure one country and annexure one country. Joint implementation was again applicable between two developed countries. Under joint implementation, what the scene was somewhat like this. That is, annexure one country will establish emission reduction project in any other annexure one country, and as a result of this project, some basically emission will reduce. There will be some emission reduction units. A developed country, annexure one country will establish an emission reduction project in any other annexure one country. As a result of this project, some emission will be reduced. So this country will earn emission reduction units, not credits. These reduction, that is because of this project, will be added to this country's quota and also to the other country's quota where the actual reduction has taken place. Are you getting this? नहीं, ये words are ना CERs, CERs, they are being used in short form.
So credits are added to both countries' accounts, and basically credits are added shared between one country.
नहीं, these credits basically they get the money for it. Developing countries get the money for it, and the reductions are added in developed countries quota, and money is received, money and technology is received by developing country. In this case, this project one annexure one country, the developed country is establishing a project in another developed country. In that case, whatever emissions are reduced, they are shared by both these countries. नहीं, ये सब लिखा नहीं बेटा, ये सब तुम लोग